Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video just wanted to share with you the beginnings of the patch 4.1 website that went live today, September 21st, 2017. Now, the anticipated release date, as they say, is early October. I'm still guessing will be October 10th, with the live letter number 39 coming on September 29th. Now, for that reason, the trailer is not yet available on the website itself. If I, again, had to wager a guess, we will be getting it the day of the live letter on the 29th. However, they have started to detail the patch itself, things that we obviously already know, but with new screenshots and descriptions of the stories of the individual aspects. Now, at the top here, we only have the main scenario, Return to Ivalice, the new dungeon, and housing. Other things listed here are Shinryu's Domain, which will be the official name for Shinryu Extreme, the Unending Coils of Bahamut Ultimate, Rival Wings, which is the new PvP mode, Adventurer Squadrons, which we are expecting will be able to take them into the dungeons, and on top of other things, like they'll be able to increase their level and stuff like that. Side story quests such as Hildebrand and maybe something else. Beast Tribe quests for the they told us it was the Kojin that we're going to be exploring that with, and additional updates, whatever that means. Now, my first thing that I notice here is that Eureka the Forbidden Land, which has been absent from all their 4.1 talk, is still absent from this right here. Last they spoke of Eureka the Forbidden Land, they said they were aiming for 4.15-ish. And that seemed very not set in stone. So unless it's hidden here, unless they can complete it on time enough to put it on the PR site, or it's going to be listed under additional updates, which seems kind of strange considering Eureka is a whole zone for a weapon that in previous PR websites like this, they've included the Anima Weapon. When the Anima Weapon was brand new in 3.15, the 3.1 website had Anima Weapon as its own section. So I'm beginning to think that Eureka is not going to make it in 4.15. I won't say that for certain, but I'm beginning to think that that might be the case. As for the screenshots we have here, the first one we have is for the main scenario quests. The description of it is as follows. The liberation of Alamigo signals the end of an era of tyranny. Here, on the cusp of a new age of freedom, her people must decide how they will greet their future and reconcile with their past. What path lies ahead for Ivalice in her efforts to rebuild the nation? What choices plague Fordola from within her prison cell? And to where will Raubon return now that the dream of his homeland has at last become reality? These are all very important points, especially with the name The Legend Returns. Obviously, with the key art at the top here, a large part of that is playing on the Return to Ivalice raid. However, they usually have multi-tiered meanings when it comes to these titles, and so the actual name of our main scenario quest is indeed The Legend Returns. So it will be a theme that is ultimately present in the main scenario quest itself. For reconciling with the past, one thing is always Vidargelt, but I don't think he's actually going to make an appearance here. I think it's more going to come down to Lise dealing with, the loss of her sister, or, what her sister accomplished, or the people's perception of her and her sister. Fordola, obviously, though she grew up in Garlean-controlled Alamigo, and as such, she kind of has to figure out what that history means to her now, and if she can even survive in an Alamigan-run Alamigo, as opposed to it being run by the Garleans. And of course, Raubon, he is a very prominent figure in Ul'dah politics. And if Alamigo's back, does he sever himself from the Syndicate and move on? Those are some pretty important points, and I'm glad that they're hitting on the more political side of what has happened to Alamigo, at least in this patch itself. We have to believe that Kugane is going to be present in the patch itself as well, but they do seem to very heavily be focusing specifically on the Alamigan side of things. Looking in the screenshots, you can see Lise in this first one in the Grand Hall. You have Fordola in her prison cell. You have... This one's really weird to me. The Lamia, or I'm calling them the Lamia. I'm sorry, it's just, it's a habit. The Ananta. It almost looks like they're fighting inside of the actual area, and you can even see some of what look like resistance members here as well. So I'm curious what's actually happening right here. There's no way of really telling. And of course, this looks like kind of Pippin pressing his adoptive father about what his decision is ultimately going to be. Moving on to Return to Ivalice, we have our initial segment of this one. This morning, residents of Kugane woke to find above their city an airship unlike any ever seen. Yet while of Garlean design, the vessel distinctly lacked the bleak outfitting common in the Empire War Machina. No, this was the Prima Vista, private stage for the majestic Imperial Theater Company, probably called Tantalus. a troupe having won acclaim across Garlemald for their timeless work, the Zodiac Brave story. Which begets the question, why are they here? The question to that answer and more lies in the self-same legend of which they sing, the legend of Ivalice. I don't think we'll see Zidane, but I expect to see Baku, Marcus, and, you know, the rest of the Tantalus crew dealing with the Prima Vista. It's undoubtedly going to come with the Prima Vista theme from Final Fantasy IX. I'll be very upset if it does not. More interestingly, the Zodiac Brave story is one that we're somewhat familiar with already. Now, realistically, that story has different meaning in the world of Ivalice. However, in Final Fantasy XIV, the Zodiac Braves are something we're familiar with. They were the origin points of the Zodiac Brave weapons that we worked on back in 2.x. So I'm curious if there's going to be much overlap there, or if they are going to have their own separate Zodiac Brave story, one that fits more the Garlean side of things as opposed to what we're used to over in Eorzea. And on top of that, the legend of Ivalice itself, we know we're going to Rabanastre, and Rabanastre itself, as you can see in the screenshot, is looking not in the best of shapes. Looking at it, you know, it definitely has, you know, it has the oasis, it has the desert feel. Very technically advanced, almost to me resembles more Arcadia when I see it from a distance, obviously without as tall the buildings, but I don't know. It looks like I can't really make out exactly if this is inspired from some other culture that we already have in Final Fantasy XIV. I'm not really good at recognizing that. But when we go into the final one, this is undoubtedly the Garam Scythe waterways underneath Rabanastre. So in these things, we've seen Final Fantasy IX reference in the Prima Vista and Tantalus. We've seen the Final Fantasy XII reference to the Garam Scythe waterways. And going all the way back to the top, we clearly know that something with the legend has to do with Ramza and Delita. So I'm curious to see how they mix all this together, but as a reminder, in case you're worried about the story, Yasumi Matsuno, the father of Ivalice himself, wrote this story. So he thinks it's up to snuff for what he envisioned Ivalice being. He is the granddaddy of all this. So if he gets it wrong, which I think there's no chance he could screw this up, then there's no chance. So let's not even talk about the potential ramifications. And we also have what's called Keita Amiya, or Amemiya. I always screw that one up too. He's worked on bosses for games like the Shin Megami Tensei series, and on top of that, most recently, you know, Garo is something you should all know him from as well. He's worked on the monster designs for that. Zera, Moon Over Tau, Tekoki, Mikazuki, Tweeny Witches, and so many other things I can't even cover it. Moving on to the one new dungeon. Now, as a reminder, to work on things like the Ultimate series of raids, to work on things like Eureka, the Forbidden Land, the Adventurer Squadron updates, they've toned down on how many dungeons we get in odd-numbered patches again. We only get a single expert dungeon added in odd-numbered patches, such as 4.1, and 4.3 will be the next time this happens. As such, this will probably simply be added to the current expert roulette, and we'll probably just have 4 dungeons in the expert roulette. It doesn't make sense to just get rid of Alamigo and keep it at 3, because then where does it go? So they'll probably move this one into the expert roulette. We'll have 4 dungeons, and then when 4.2 rolls around, they'll probably take out Alamigo. I don't even do the dungeons anymore. Their names are escaping me. Temple of the Fist and Kugane Castle. And they'll move those out into their own roulette, and then we'll have 3 dungeons in the expert roulette. So rotating between 3 and 4 dungeons in a roulette is better than 2 dungeons in a roulette, so I'll take it. And it is, of course, in the drowned city of Scala. Now, long ago, in the dawn of the 5th Astral Era, the modest nation of Scala was founded in the land of Girabanya. Over the span of several centuries, its people constructed a grand city of stone at the bottom of a steep walled ravine. But even this natural defense cannot protect Scala from the destruction during a terrible age of war. When the great flood of the 6th Umbral Calamity later swept across the realm, the hollow ruins of the city were lost to sight, its remnants submerged beneath a raging sea. Haunting the depths of what is now the Loch Seld, Scala's silent walls lure adventurers into the salt-laden waters with the promise of mysteries unsolved and treasures unclaimed. This, to me, is probably the most excited I've been about the lore of an expert dungeon in a really long time. If you haven't gotten your teasers of the Lost City of Scala or the Drowned City of Scala, I highly recommend you go to the Loch Seld and dive into the water now. You can find remnants of the city and probably find the direct entrance that we'll be using to go into the Drowned City itself. There is a mountain of, as they said, mysteries unsolved down there, lore that we want to know more about, and an entire city that perished at the same time as the 3 great nations had their War of the Magi is probably something we want to know more about. Looking through some screenshots, you'll definitely recognize it if you've been under the lock cell at any point. As you can see, treasure rooms, you know, some more of the outward appearance, the parts of the ravine, more exposed parts of the ravine itself. A boss, who's frightening. You know, so here's the thing. I have another theory, which isn't relevant to this video too much, but with Alamigo having a mount, I want to presume they're going to start doing dungeon mounts more often. I hope that this thing's a mount, as hideous as it is. We'll see what actually ends up happening. Oh, and probably the most exciting thing, there was a gear contest or gear design contest a while back, and I specifically believe the healer set here is the one that won the ultimate contest. I think this is fairly unique and decent looking gear. I'm not great when it comes to fashion or glamour or any of that stuff, so I don't mess with it. But I feel like this stands out in a sense, and I feel like that's pretty good for a dungeon set overall. Moving on to the final thing that's mentioned so far, I'll keep you guys up to date when the other stuff gets added. Shirogane, the new housing district, you guys should know it by now, hitting in 4.1, will be live as soon as the servers are live. If you're trying to get a house, you need to be awake for 4.1's launch, whenever that actually ends up being. You can just see a few screenshots real quick of some of the exteriors of the houses and the area itself. Oh man, that's I'm assuming that's the apartment. Yeah, that's the apartment complex itself. And then just the streets of Shirogane itself. On top of that, as a reminder, if you already have a house and you want to relocate to Shirogane, there will be the relocation feature where you could basically pick up your house and move it. Also, storage is coming to all forms of housing, allowing residents to stow their furnishings away. This is especially important for items that if you remove them, they're basically destroyed. Having the ability to store those instead is going to be a good option. I don't know about you, I kind of just want to store stuff just so it's not in my inventory. But anyway, that's all the 4.1 website has so far. I'll be sure to keep you up to date as more things get added to it later. But let me know what you think of some of the theories. What are your theories about the Legend Returns, about us going to Rabanastre for Return to Ivalice, or, you know, how you think some of this stuff is going to work out, you know, the background of the Lost City of Scala. Discuss it in the comment section below. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for all the information you'll ever need about Final Fantasy XIV. Thank you, and until next time, take care.